Hello my dear friends, and welcome back to another very exciting Star Wars news update. We are now just 2 weeks away from Skeleton Crew, but today's focus is going to be on a different New Republic show. I've been spending a lot of time reading the new Star Wars Encyclopedia, where there is a ton of new information. Previously unnamed characters and species have now been identified, and there is so much new stuff about familiar characters too. We also have never before seen photos of those familiar faces. For instance, a new photo of Leader Mothma, Mon Mothma's daughter from Andor Season 1. So I was flipping through the book, and as you would expect, some characters have a lot more page space than others, especially the main characters. We're talking Vader, Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon, Luke, Leia. But then I stumbled across the page about Star Wars Outlaws, and I was mesmerized to find the main character of the main Star Wars game of 2024 isn't even given a photo in this book. Kayvess. For one thing, her section on the top left-hand side of the page is smaller than some of the background senators from Ahsoka, the ones who literally had one scene. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of Star Wars Outlaws. I had fun playing some of the game, but I never finished it. But considering this is Lucasfilm's flagship 2024 video game, they would at the very least give her a photo. I saw this on social media and I thought, did someone edit this? But then I whipped out my own copy, which I bought the other day, and lo and behold, page 164, there is no photo of Kayvess. This has to be a mistake. I can't believe this. I feel really bad for the actress Humberly Gonzalez, to be honest. This is the second time they've done wrong by her. First it was the modelling for Kayvess, and now this omission. In the last few years we've been saying that Disney Star Wars is self-sabotaging. I'd say this is another example. Another thing that bothers me about the new encyclopedia is the fact with all of the legacy characters, for the main photo they went out of their way to avoid using the original trilogy versions and instead opted for the way they look in the sequels. For example, Luke Skywalker's profile uses his Last Jedi iteration. Sure, they use a couple of smaller pictures of the original trilogy, but if it were my decision, this would be Return of the Jedi Luke, prominently displayed front and center. Call me a sequel hater or anything you want. This is not the best representation of the hope of the galaxy. The legend of Luke Skywalker, the son of Anakin, who redeemed his father, who brought peace to the galaxy. They did the same thing with Wedge Antilles, and the same thing with Lando. And I suppose, you're going to say the reason is obvious. The sequel trilogy is Disney's trilogy, it's the one they made. But when they acquired Lucasfilm, it all belonged to them. So, what would be the issue using photos of our favourite characters at their peak? Even for blimming Obi-Wan. Look, I was so happy Ewan McGregor returned for the Obi-Wan series. Even if it didn't pan out the way I would have hoped, there are some really cool promotional shots of him, but they went for his Jedi in Exile look, which isn't very inspiring for one of the most important Jedi of the saga. You might disagree with me on this. They should have gone with his Revenge of the Sith look. And I'm very happy to report, as a prequels fan, Jar Jar Binks gets a lot of book space, 8 paragraphs, and something which feels very reminiscent of the early 2000s is talking about Gungan culture, talking about the Naboo. That was rather nostalgic. And I think in response to some criticism of the Mandalorian universe, they've actually gone back and named some planets which were unnamed. For instance, do you remember Gor Koresh in Chapter 9, where Mando and Grogu are trying to find Mandalorians, and they go and watch the Gamorrean fight? Well, that takes place on RTK 111. And now we come on to Ahsoka. There is a dedicated section to the Monument of the Ones, the statues of the gods of Mortis, on Peridea. Tucked into a valley in Peridea's rocky wastelands, there are 3 statues. 2 of the towering monuments have visages of the father and the son. The third is perhaps the daughter, so they don't confirm it, but we pretty much know it is. But they say, quote, "It's missing." The statue's connection to Mortis is as yet unknown. They're really teasing Ahsoka's second season. Baylan's skull calls the planet a place of dreams and madness. On his quest, he must make a solitary pilgrimage. Now, while these are already things we knew, it's the first time they're explicitly mentioned like this. And these new bios are going to form the basis of a theory I'm going to lay out later in this video. Essentially, they say this: Shin craves power, she is chaos, whereas Baylan, despite coming across as more villainous, is seeking peace, a third path. And one of the most important aspects we're going to focus on is how the story Dave Filoni based these characters on already tells us their fate. I'm expanding on one of my old theories, and I think Baylan and Shin are inseparable. Despite Baylan abandoning her, He needs her, but he doesn't know it yet. Before the first season, we talked about Dave Filoni's obsession with wolves, how both Shin and Baylan are named after two very important wolves in Norse mythology. Well, now that the first season is over, we can look back on those stories and kind of piece together where things are headed, and I can't see them both surviving. I'll explain in just a moment. If you watched my last video, then you know I got to ask Sam Witwer a few questions. I shared with you his reaction to the Acolyte, but I also asked him about the future of Shin. I asked him if he thinks, after a separation from Baylan, she's going to remain dark. Is she going to join Ahsoka and Sabine, who are also stuck there? At the end of the season, she united with the bandits. And I don't know if he was just speculating or if he knows something, but listen to what he says.
Do I think Shin will stay bad? Hard to say. Hard to say. She was trained in the wild, and she's surely hanging out with the wrong people. I'll give you that.
Why are the bandits the wrong people? Are they not going to look out for her? Is she going to go full dark side? Either way, despite her chasing something different to her former master, I can't see things ending well for either of them. So, how does this relate to the wolf theory? Because if you understand the intricacies of the stories of Skoll and Hattie, if you interpret it and put it in the context of Ahsoka, their pursuits will lead to destruction and darkness. Is Baylan chasing an empty promise? Skoll and Hattie are two wolves who are mentioned in passing references in their pursuit of Sol, the sun, and Mani, the moon. They're hoping to devour them. During the downfall of the cosmos, at Ragnarok, the two catch their prey and the sky darkens as the earth collapses. Their relentless pursuit symbolizes the end of the world, an embracing of chaos, the end of order, the inevitability of fate. The story emphasizes the inescapable nature of fate, and just like Baylan, the story reflects the cycle of destruction and renewal. Day gives way to light, seasons change, life alternates between chaos and order. The wolves' eventual success leads to the end of the world. It's not an ending, but the precursor to a rebirth. In the context of Baylan, he's seen the fall of the Republic, the end of the Jedi, the rise and fall of the Empire, the coming of the Remnant, and the establishment of the New Republic. As he says, these cycles repeat again and again and again. Whatever he's being promised in the Force is offering him something beyond it. But here's something interesting to note. There is one passage, when applied, and again I don't know how much Dave Filoni followed this, could reveal more than we know about the fates of Baylan and Shin. Here's what it says. Skoll is the name of the wolf, the one who follows the shining priest into the desolate forest. Remember, he was looking at a shining beacon that resembled the Mortis monastery, the religious imagery. But in this context, who is the shining priest? Does he know he's being led into the desolate forest? And the other is Hattie, who chases the bright bride of the sky. At face value, it sounds like Baylan is chasing darkness, the moon, and Shin is chasing light, the sun. If applied to Star Wars metaphorically, is the light Shin is chasing Ahsoka and Sabine? And is she going to devour it, as in try to kill that light? Or could Filoni suggest that she is chasing after it, to be a part of it? We have to remember the symbolism of Morai and the connection between Ahsoka and the daughter. So you're probably wondering this. If Shin is chasing the light, if she is the one who maybe dodged a bullet, being left behind by Baylan, then why do I think she's not going to make it? Because there's a bit of a dilemma when we look at the purpose of the Mortis Gods. In the context of one theory, that Ahsoka, Baylan, and Anakin's Force Ghost could make up the new Mortis Gods, it begs the question of what about the roles of Shin and Sabine? They don't seem to fit into the Mortis pattern. It complicates the theory significantly. Shin and Sabine very much parallel each other. Despite being foes, they have a lot in common, but their futures in this paradigm are uncertain. One very interesting theory is that Peridea is the prison of the mother, the one who was banished, the one who sought immortality. What if the Ragnarok event is Abeloth becoming free again, perhaps requiring a host? What if this causes a massive rift in the Force? Could this change the fate of the galaxy for years to come? What do you guys think? Share your thoughts on this in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up. Subscribe if you're new, check me out on social media, and may the Force be with you, always.